And bada bing, hello. So, we've gathered here today for a very important discussion. Um, for those of you who are watching at home, um, welcome to or welcome back to Infinity and Beyond, which is AANE's interactive live stream about issues that matter to us, the autistic community. With open minds, let's share our opinions and questions. My name is Liv Gallup. I have worked at AANE for 8 years now. I am an author on the intersectionality of being autistic and queer. I have been diagnosed with being on the spectrum since I was 6, and I'm excited to get things going today. Our company, AANE, is one that provides services to autistic folks, their families, and the professionals that support them. You can click the link in the description below to learn more. So tonight we have a cool topic. We're going to talk about employment and having a degree and what that means in the autistic community. There's all sorts of different things that we're going to discuss with our lovely guests. Hi, guys. How's it going?
Hi.
Hello. We're joined by Stephanie Birkdale and Taylor Igler tonight, and we're going to talk about some cool stuff. So the first thing that I wanted to dive into is... well, actually, first, why don't y'all tell us and the viewers a little bit about yourselves? Could you perhaps give your educational background and what types of employment you have found for yourselves over the course of your adulthood and stuff?
Yeah. You can go first if you want, so that way we're not talking over each other.
Sure. So my name is Stephanie. I also work for AANE. I've been employed here for about 9 years. That is accurate. Oh my.
Oh my. Oh my.
I was like, I can't be that long. But no, it is. I currently work in the marketing department. But I started as part-time and worked my way up to full-time. I am the marketing program manager. So I'm now full-time and I work in marketing, but I also do some facilitation in social groups. And in addition to that, I also am an autistic woman, and I was diagnosed between 10 and 15 years ago in my early 20s. And in addition to not having a college degree, actually, I would like to caveat that. I do not currently have a college degree, but I am in school and I will be finishing my associates this semester. That was more of a personal decision than a employment decision. I just felt it was good for me. Most of my adult employment journey has been without one. And in addition to my work for AANE, I am also a pet sitter. So I do things like pet and house sitting, dog walks, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thank you. And you're already getting into like the meat of what we're going to get to tonight with things regarding employment. Because I think oftentimes, especially with folks around our age, we're all in our early 30s. We were sold the idea that if you go to college, automatically you get better work, which, as we know, since we have grown up now, is not always true. So thank you for mentioning that already, Stephanie. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, Taylor, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your educational background and employment and things?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Taylor Igler, or Igler. It doesn't really matter how you say my last name. I currently work in insurance. I work for it's personal lines insurance, so I take care of like auto, umbrella, homeowners insurance questions for people, and that requires basically you have to take a test to get your licensure. which means that unlike going to school, I just simply was employed by a company that allowed me to take that test. I got my licensure and continued on my work as a licensed insurance agent. Before becoming an insurance agent, I kind of have a little bit of dabbling in college. I started off with going to school fresh out of high school. I took 2 years of classes and then hit a point where I just financially couldn't manage it. But I started off with computer science, did a little bit of business, was trying to figure out what fit, and in the end, it ultimately didn't work out. I have a diagnosis that is ADHD, but I'm also undiagnosed autistic. Very obvious with how I talk to people and how I handle everything. So.
Gang. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's tight. Very, very cool. Hell yeah. Thank you very much. That is very helpful. And also, thank you for illustrating your licensures, because that, like, we're talking about, like, degrees and employment, but there's other things to be able to, like, achieve or be able to put on your resume besides, like, whole degrees that can get you to different places within employment. So, there's, like, forgive the potential pun here, but there's a whole spectrum of things that you can do to get yourself into a job that you like. So that's cool. Thank you both very much. I'm very excited to continue to talk to y'all. I just wanted to ask the chat before we really jump in, do any folks in here happen to have a career that they found without a degree? What did you do to get to your place of employment, and ultimately, are you satisfied with it? So feel free to think on that while we're talking tonight. But why do y'all feel like this is especially relevant to the autistic community? Because, like I said a second ago, we were sold the idea that, like, college equals jobs, which isn't necessarily true. So is there a way that that has particularly impacted the autistic community? Do you think that we thrive in college generally, or and does that, like, just create more work for us? Ultimately, like, does this notion of you have to go to college, does that gatekeep us out of employment? Or maybe there's a completely different notion that I'm not touching on right now. So what do you guys think about this? How is this pertinent to the autistic community?
I think it's pretty well known that college does not automatically lead to a either satisfying or well-paying job, or either. In my case, while I'm in school now in my mid-30s, I actually did go to a standard 4-year college in my late teens, 18 to 22. I started general, and I ended up getting into nursing school, mostly because that was something that my parents kind of wanted for me. It was clear to me pretty early on that nursing was just not the field for me. And I ended up having some pretty severe burnout at the end, and I never graduated. So I do not have a college degree right now. And as tough as that was, I'm also a little bit grateful, only because I think the severity of the burnout that I was experiencing at the time led to the diagnosis for me. So I sort of wonder, if I hadn't gone and I hadn't been able to be diagnosed that early in comparison to others, then I don't know if I would be where I am now. Mm-hmm. We, as a family, for us, found AA&E when looking for resources for me. So housing resources, employment resources. And my mother actually stumbled upon one of the AA&E benefits conferences that used to be in person a very long time ago. And that's how she found my first apartment. That's how she found someone that she meshed with in terms of friendship, who eventually became my mentor and gave me the recommendation to be hired at AANE.
Geez, that's kind of freaking amazing.
I know, right?
Yeah. No, AANE comes in clutch for that kind of stuff.
It was kind of weird. My mother was looking for things for me, stumbled upon an AANE benefits conference, like more than 10 years ago now, and I'm still employed.
That's pretty sweet.
Cute.
Not to immediately go on a tangent, but actually kind of same. Like I utilized AANE's services when I was in grade school, or my parents did for me, and then lo and behold, I end up working here all this time later. So let's go.
Right.
No, I do think it's kind of common for those of us who are autistic or are neurodivergent at large that like burnout, that word is it's so common for us when we go into school right after high school, because like it's what we're expected to do. We try and push ourselves past like how we're already probably feeling, and it's that whole entire concept of senioritis. When you hit your senior year in high school and you just kind of like you crash out, using more modern terms. And then you continue on going into school after the fact thinking, well, this is what it's expected of me, I should follow through with this, and lo and behold, you start slipping. You can't keep a hold of that perfectly manicured mask that you've been holding on to so long. Because like I did really well in school. By all intents and purposes, I probably should have a degree. People are always surprised to find out that I don't, and it's just like, well, money. For me, at least. But I know for some people, it's burnout. You hit a point where you just stop functioning as you had, and then you have to relearn how to handle the world that you knew, And I think that's a big thing for all of us who are autistic or neurodivergent, is that dealing with the burnout is hard. Or even trying to figure out like how to manage afterwards. Because for me, at least, school was always the goal. I love academia. I love studying and learning and everything. But the problem is that you need cash. And sometimes in order to, I need a job to go to school, but I need a school to go get a job kind of thing. Or at least that's what I thought back then. And obviously I found that wasn't the case.
Sure.
And I didn't have to work as like a cashier or as a like produce person, because I used to work as a clerk in a grocery store before this. And I found that, this isn't required. There are other options besides going to trade school or graduate school or undergrad or anything like that.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, so as a tangent to this, I am also a type 1 diabetic. So for me, when I was going to school, it was the first time I had been away from home, and I'm like, love this. I'm no longer diabetic. Like, I don't like it, so I am just going to ignore things.
Yep.
Honey,
it doesn't work that way.
No, don't do that.
That's not how that works at all.
Life doesn't work that way. Luckily, I didn't do too much damage. My kidneys and liver are fine, all the things. But by the end of that college journey, my A1C, which is a measure of blood sugars, a typical range for that is 7 to 8, and mine was over 13. Over 13, and I was flunking out. That
number scared me, dude. What the fuck?
If it helps, my A1C now is 6.8.
That is helpful. Thank you. That makes me feel better.
So welcome.
Less concerned.
It was bad.
We stand the current good care. That is good.
Oh yeah, insulin pens. I have CGM on.
Same, baby. Let's go.
I take very good care of my diabetic health. That is not something I will ever do again. But I was 18 and away from home, and
well, I mean, and also like it's one of those things of similar to probably like how sometimes we don't want to pay attention to the bad things in front of us. You don't want to focus on the bad things that are happening to your body because of everything. Like I can imagine there's times where like I'm like, I don't want to focus on how messy this space is. It's the same thing except for it's your body.
Yeah, I guess my point was just being like my physical health wasn't great. I was burning out. I was flunking out of college, to be quite honest. And I think the cascade of all of that led to physical recovery, thank goodness. But in addition, the diagnosis that led me to AA&E, where I've been employed for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah, that's awesome. Taylor, a minute ago you mentioned just like the impact of money on this whole situation. And it made me, first I want to bring attention to a nice comment that is in our chat right now from Are You Serious? Says that I loved college and could not stop learning mainly because I was able to learn special areas and at my own pace. However, it did not pay off much in comparison to job or income. Love my job though. Glad you love your job. That's rad.
Love it.
But also, it makes me think of like college right now as it functions in America is, you know, it's supposed to give you credentials so that you can have access to a greater job market. But what if, say you take the whole concept of like money and prosperity out of it? Do you think that we as autistic folks would thrive more in college if it was purely a place of learning where you could go to just expand your knowledge?
Personally, yes, but that's because like I'm that kind of person. If I was allowed to go back to school 5 million times over, I would.
For sure.
Because I like learning new things. I've always been that way. It's always fun to like figure out like how things tick. I'm that kid who would never stop asking why, and I'm still in that boat. Well, why does the TV turn on? How does that work? What is going on with this? I in my free time, I learned how to take apart computers and put them back together because I like doing it. And probably could utilize that as a skill if I really wanted to.
Definitely. You build like custom PCs.
Exactly. And that's also like, you know, an option out there that I would have probably not considered.
100%. What about you, Stephanie? Do you think us autistic folks would thrive more in college without the looming threat of money on the horizon? You could even think about it like, would you thrive more in college if it didn't have to do with money?
Probably. Back when I first went to college, I was lucky enough that my parents paid for some of it and a scholarship paid for the rest. So having that financial burden wasn't on my radar. But it definitely was when I went back to school. That was a big concern. I wanted to be worth more as an employee, but I also knew that going back to school would be a financial cost. Luckily, I personally am based in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts has a program called Mass Reconnect that if you meet certain criteria, they will cover your schooling costs. And I happen to meet all the criteria. So paying for school, I happen to be extremely privileged. That has never been an issue, really. But again, I'm aware in my knowledge that I'm extremely privileged in that fact.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think another thing is that it's that I think that a lot of people who are neurodivergent probably also don't think about how much having gap years could actually help us between high school to our upper education, because taking that break allows us to reset and potentially avoid that burnout, which I don't think a lot of people think is an option. I know for a fact that, like, in my household at least, between the 4 of us, 3 of us have educations. One was done like full out, straight, one shot through all the way through law school. Another person had to take a break for a period of time and graduated closer to being like 28 compared to, you know, your standard 23, 24. And then the other one also did like a straight shoot, but it was it involved jumping around from schools. So he kind of took a little bit longer than your standard college goer. And I think that is also a thing that could help some people if they're struggling now, especially. Not saying that, like, you know, you have to finish and get a degree. Obviously speaking, that's not the case. That's why we're here. But for people who are maybe looking for that answer, it is okay to take a break. I was always afraid to do so because I was like, I always told myself, if I take a break now, I'm never going to go back. And it has been true. but it's more because I'm financially stable. It's not because I actually don't want to go back to school or, you know, anything of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that I've got a job that pays well and I don't feel the need to go back.
Yep. Stability, I think, is a lot of what we're sold with this whole like American dream biz, where like, you know, you're given a criteria of what is stable here, and then you work to reach it, and like college is a stepping stone on the way to doing it. So Taylor, like if you've found that stability, which from all accounts it sounds like you're in like a decent enough spot, then you know, like you can elect to go back to school or not. Like it's beautiful to have that choice. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, which is nice. Like I said, it's not always the case, and I am privileged for that, but we also have it to where our household is a little unconventional, and because of that, I'm allowed to have that, like, little bit
For
of
sure,
privilege.
yeah. Your household rules, for sure. And so we've been touching on this a little bit, but I wanted to bring it up a bit more deliberately, where, you know, we've been talking about what each of our neurotypes kind of, like, influences us to want to do, or how we can participate with our jobs and learning and stuff like that. But just to ask it, like, you know, deliberately, if you think about your neurotype and how that, let me phrase that differently. Thinking about your neurotype, how does it affect your relationship with either your employment or with education?
So, for me at least, when it comes to my employment, I have found that the insurance industry is chock full of people who are neurodivergent, because the entire job is following rules. We have to follow, like, the way that it works in property casualty insurance. Not so much on the commercial end. You've got a little more leeway on working through some things with that. But on the personal line side, working through people's home policies, their auto policies, there are state guidelines that come out. So like Massachusetts has its own guidelines on like what constitutes what coverage you have, what you should have, how to get that coverage, and there's like a guidebook to it. And so because there's so much rules and regulation and requirements for it, I found that people who are autistic and ADHD just tend to naturally fill this niche. I don't think I've ever worked with a person who is in the insurance business that is not some form of neurodivergent, even if they're not aware of it, because it's very clear that there's a lot of people who have flown under the radar who are definitely on this on that spectrum, who aren't aware. But the thing is that it works really well for us because we have that like criteria of like, okay, this person's policy is coming up for renewal. I know that the guidelines are very easy to follow in regards to what I should do, how I can handle like looking for other company policies for them, shopping with other carriers, and talking with them. Because my entire goal is to be a person who is speaking to them, not so much as a like casual conversation kind of deal, but more of a here's the meat and potatoes of what you're dealing with. This is what you need. We're going to keep that because it's required, and we can kind of talk about what we can get rid of and what companies have better prices compared to others for you. So it's a lot of like, while it's definitely a customer service related job, a lot of my customer service is telling people, okay, I understand that you don't want to pay this much and you don't want to have this coverage, but unfortunately, because you have a mortgage or because of this information, you need to have it. This is required. So following those guidelines, let's see what we can do with what you have and what we can adjust from there, you know?
Yeah, super valid. And thank you for saying all that, because that also touched on what my next question was going to be, which is how you decide to pursue your current job. But yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. I really resonated with what you said about it all being like, you know, it's essentially like just following different sets of rules so that you can help somebody navigate whatever maze they're going through and get to like the most like comfortable and helpful end of it. That certainly, I think yours and my autism are similar. I think so.
Probably.
That certainly resonates with me as a reason to do that as an autistic person. Well,
it's like it's the rules. Like I have like very specifically for me at least. Like the ADHD sometimes fights me on it. I will be fully honest because I'm like, okay,
sure. Yeah.
I have to. The deadline's approaching. I need 5 different ways to get that deadline to ensure that I don't miss it by accident. Because I do have that issue. But like the rules following is definitely a hard part of my neurotype. I need strict guidelines that I can enforce because it makes my life easier.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Yep. I love my clear barriers.
Yes. Well, being a people pleaser doesn't help that. So like having a clear boundary that I can set down makes it so much easier.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Yep. Okay, so yeah, we do have similar spectrum hoods then, because
I'm not surprised by this at all.
Hey. Hey Stephanie, I wanted to ask you the same question though. So did you, phrase that differently. How do you think your spectrum hood informs like how you navigate employment and yeah, sorry, that was the end of that sentence. How does your spectrum hood navigate, inform your employment, for sure?
Yeah, so I think the fact that my job has a lot of routine tasks involved. Creating registration pages, updating the website with web events, creating content for some of the departments. That definitely makes me feel more comfortable. And I personally know that I do not have like a higher ledge on the ladder within AA&E. Like if I wanted to advance my career anymore, I'd have to go somewhere else. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that like I'm happy with my role and I don't want to add to that in terms of like responsibilities, because the way that marketing in particular for us works is we're all pretty high level. There's no sort of like admin sort of for marketing. Not that admin is terrible, because it's not. That's where I started. But all of us kind of create content and do those sort of more creative things. So if I wanted to advance my career within AA&E or within marketing specifically, it would sort of be kind of to an associate director level, and that's not something I'm interested in personally. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing, obviously. Some people may want that responsibility. I just don't. And I went off on a tangent.
No, like I'm
That's
really
reasonable.
glad. I'm really glad that you described that, because like, gosh, like I think that's even an extension of like what we were going over a minute ago with like finding stability. Because like at the end of the day, like, like again with this whole like American dream biz, like you're supposed to like, climb and climb and climb until you're like the CEO that gets to oppress everybody else. But that's a different conversation for a different time. But
like the point is that we don't have to worry about it.
We don't have to worry about that, right? And like
that's not the goal.
Right,
yeah, like
right.
Correction. It doesn't have to be the goal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I wanted to advance within AA&E, I absolutely could do that. I could move to another department. I could ask for more responsibilities if I wanted, but I don't want that.
Right, for sure.
I like the responsibilities that I have. I like that my boss has put faith in me to handle these responsibilities, which are much more than when I first started. But I don't think I would want any more responsibility than what I have.
Sure.
If I were to advance my career in terms of sort of financially, then I would sort of be starting over in a sense where I would have to go to another company number one, it would be in person, which leaving the house every day is not my idea of fun.
Hate that. Hate that.
I very much love working from home. I can play music and no one cares. Don't tell Kathy, but I can watch TV in the background and no one cares because no one is in my house.
Yeah.
I won't tell
You can have the background noise on. Like I do the same thing. Like sometimes if I don't have to worry about like say like when I'm just doing processing stuff, because that is part of my job, is processing. When I'm going through the renewals to see, okay, do I need to review this? Do I need to remarket it? Do I need to do whatever? I have Critical Role up in the background. I'm listening to my D&D stuff. It's great. I can get it allowed me to finish like the most recent campaign, which I have not had a chance to do before. And I was like, this is amazing. I will happily have this job because I'm not on the phone constantly anymore. I'm not dealing with other things in regards to that. I can just, I can tailor my atmosphere to what works best for me and my ADHD and my autism.
Yeah,
which I think is the important part of like being neurodivergent and working, like being in the workforce, is finding how to tailor. Oh my god, I should be able to say my own name. But
like when I was in the office, it was a little bit harder because I couldn't just have whatever I wanted in the background. It had to be specific. Music, low muted, headphones, which for me is not that big of a deal. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like I'll jam to country music all day long. Mm-hmm. So wasn't that big of a deal. But if I had to go back in person somewhere different, I think the environment would be very different. And I honestly, as confident as I am in my current set of skills, I think starting over would be extremely overwhelming because I wouldn't know anyone. I'd have to learn all new tasks. I have to figure out all new policies. And it might not be as bad as brand new into the workforce, but it's still a factor to consider. Do I want to bring that stress into my life when it's not absolutely required?
Yeah, like it goes back to that comfort aspect. Yeah. Like you're happy.
I may not have a ton in savings, but my bills are paid, my rent is paid. Like I don't need to go to a for-profit company unless I choose to. And that may happen down the line if I decide, I really do want more money. But for now, the job that I have, the environment in my house that I have, that I don't have to leave on a regular basis, is what works for me. But I think it's super hard for a lot of people to find that. I do think that finding the right employer is more important than finding the right job.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, because like finding a company that fits your vibe is like key as being like neurodivergent, because if you have an office that like a good example is that like we have different offices where I work, and I've worked with a couple of different companies in the insurance industry. I used to work at a call center prior to this, and a call center is go, go, go. You get on the phone, you're off the phone, and that's all day you're talking on the phone to people. And it worked well for me because I have ADHD, so like as soon as one call ended, it wasn't always jumping into the next call first and foremost, because some days it were busier than others. But it was a lot, dealing with that on the daily, talking to 60 plus people a day, if not more, because of how long your calls are. Because, there's metrics, there's things that you have to follow that are very specific and strict in the call center.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And I started to find myself in 2020 burning out from my own job, because I liked insurance, I liked my job, like the work itself, but I didn't necessarily care for the constant phone calls. That also, coupled with the fact that I found out I had an autoimmune disease in 2021, just made things like the worst.
Yeah.
Going on these journeys, not just like for diagnosis of autism, but just diagnosis for anything, can really change everything. But that's when I switched over working from call center work to doing work in an office that's for agency, working as an independent insurance agent. And I found that like that was a step forward for me because it helped me figure out, okay, this is the environment that I want. I have some downtime during my day where I'm not always on the phone. I'm not being timed, but I'm still doing the same work. Great. This is a great idea. Let's see what I can do let me research some of the companies in the area and see if there's something better that fits my needs as a person opposed to what fits my degree or like in this situation, my licensure, Mm-hmm. And that was a big, making that conscious decision of going, okay, I've got the skills. Now let me see what I can find for an employer. And let me start comparing because I have that capability with my licensure. What can you do for me instead of the other way around? And flipping that thought was really hard for me, especially in my early 20s, because I had always grown up with this concept of you take whatever jobs come your way. If they pay well, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah.
And unlearning that and learning, okay, you got to make sure that you actually take care of yourself in the process and you look at companies that work for you in regards to environment stuff is really important.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a big thing that we've talked about, or not necessarily talked about, but have gone about a little bit with love working for A&E. I volunteer for A&E. Love doing any work with it because there's not that same heavy, stringent requirement to be turned on.
Yeah.
I can fiddle, I can fidget, I can be a little more my authentic self, which
Definitely.
is nice.
There are some days, part of my role is client facing. So if someone calls and can't get the registration form to work or something, then I'm the person that answers that call. So there are some days where I'm actually on the phone pretty much all day long. But there are other days where it's a little bit more mellow and it's just my routine tasks. And there are some days where I'm just I have to answer the phone.
I have days like that too. Trust me, where it's I have to call this one client about this one thing that I've asked about 5 times. I don't really want to do it. And but that's the thing. There's some days like that. It's not.
It's all good.
Single,
I love my job. I love our company. It's all fantastic.
Y'all speaking
but I do think we, especially the 3 of us in this live stream, but a lot of us in general too, are lucky in our privilege that we have this sort of stable employment. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the norm. And I think it's tough for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I think the percentage of autistic adults who are actually stably employed is incredibly low, under 20%. Don't remember the exact amount though at the top of my head. Yep. But I know I've read it that it's incredibly low.
It's really too bad for sure.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that that just doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah, I know.
No,
I agree
I don't think it has to be.
We live in a society that hates accommodating disabled people so much that we end up with numbers like this, and it is disheartening to say the least. But before I go on my whole spiel about that, we had been talking a bit about how sorry, again, rephrase that. This is the cornerstone of speaking, is sometimes you just need to rephrase things. Anyway.
Or rethink about it. You're hold up, wait a second, my brain's going the wrong way.
Yeah. But so we were just talking about how our neurotypes inform how we go about our workplace environment and stuff like that. Are there any misconceptions that folks have about spectrum folks in the workplace that you might want to debunk right now?
I think one of the things that applies to a lot of people, but not everybody, is that if you're autistic or on the spectrum, then you're very detail-oriented. You can do repetitive tasks all the time, and that may be the case for some. It is for me, and it is what allows me to succeed and thrive. But I don't think that's the case for everybody. And I think when employers think about the type of employees that they want, I don't think applying that whoops, almost dropped my phone. I don't think applying that stereotype is helpful. Like, if I were in the position of hiring, which I am not, but if I were, I would not take a look at a job description and say, this requires attention to detail and repetition. Therefore, an autistic person would excel here. That might be the case for a lot of autistic people, but it is not the case for everyone. And I don't think applying such a stereotype is helpful to anyone.
Because what's our favorite phrase around these parts? If you met one person with spectrum hood, you've met one person with spectrum hood.
Yeah.
God. Anyway.
Yeah. But I just think there's sort of that generalization within the workforce that a lot of people on the spectrum are attention to detail, black and white thinking, logical thinking, repetition. And that may be very true. I'm not saying it's not. But applying that stereotype to every single autistic person is not helpful to either the employer or the employee.
Yeah. Or, like, you know, the other thought is that, like, the attention to detail is always on for everything. And it's like, no,
That's so true.
My attention to detail focuses on like 3 specific things. And if it's not in those 3, that wheelhouse, it's gone. Or,
so true.
The other thing is, like, for me at least, the ADHD gets in the way of the autism so much that, like, I have to have 3 screens to function for my work, because I need a screen for my emails, I need a screen for the actual, like, what I'm processing, and then I need another screen that is generally, not always, but generally, like, to access the actual policies and everything. And if one of those screens is not visual at all, like, in front of me, I'm screwed. Especially on the email front. Sometimes I've had to accommodate myself by going, okay, I need to spend from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock going through my emails, because otherwise I'm going to forget they exist 100%, because I am just in the processing phase of all of this. Or there's a day where it's, you know, I'm on the phone so much that I don't have a chance to go through my actual tasks.
Right.
So it's finding ways to get around it. And I think that, like, a lot of people think that being neurodivergent means that we have I don't know. I know where I'm trying to go with this. Give me a quick second. I've got to do the same thing. Rephrase that.
Rephrase that. Yeah.
Yeah, rephrase that. But the thought is that, you know, as somebody who is neurodivergent, we're supposed to be very good at focusing ourselves. And, you know, it's that question of, like, okay, ADHD, is it laziness, or is it just the fact that I can't figure out where to start? And that's where my problem is. I've had to find ways to accommodate myself to get through it. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that is a way to ensure that you can remain employed. Like, taking the time to think about yourself and being like, okay, I suck at doing anything functional before 9 o'clock. I obviously am still here at work. I need to go through everything and do what I can. What are those easy tasks that I can do during that first hour where my brain's waking up and I'm waiting for my meds to hit that will ensure that I can have a productive day, you know? It's what can I do to accommodate myself while going through this, and finding how to build my day so that I don't have a hard time talking to my boss about, oh, well, what'd you do during this time period? It's like, oh, I can easily point to why I do it this way. And I don't have to say, oh, it's because I'm neurodivergent. I could just be like, okay, so early mornings, I normally give some time for people to give me calls, but I also need to make sure that I've got my cup of coffee in my system.
Of course.
You know? And talking like that and finding ways to explain, like, how I work through my day is important. And I think for us neurodivergent folk, finding a job that allows us to kind of create our own schedules is imperative to that, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Because we all know our, like, what accommodates us best, you know?
Yeah, and just to say it out loud, for folks who are listening, the 3 of us had a brief meeting before the live stream started. We were talking about our individual, like, day-to-day schedules, and these lovely folks who sit beside me virtually right now, seem to be morning people, at least for the time being. And I was talking.
Oh,
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Oh,
Here's the thing.
rephrase that real quick.
I like to pretend to be a
No.
morning person.
No.
It's not exactly always conducive for me.
I see. Okay.
I'm the person who rolls out of bed at 6 o'clock, but I do the 3 alarm method, where like my first
Sure.
alarm goes off at 6
Oh,
o'clock.
yeah. There
And
are
my second alarm goes off at 6:30, which is you need to actually get up in the next 15 minutes. And then my final alarm is okay, you actually need
Now.
to get moving.
Do it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
my workday starts at 9. If I am lucky and I wake up on time, I am rolling out of bed at 8:30. But also, my desk and my
Let's
bed are
go.
3 feet apart, so like I don't have to go anywhere. On the unlucky days where I sleep through my multiple alarms,
Oh no.
there have been times where I have rolled out of bed at 11 o'clock and I'm like, crap, I was supposed to start 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm. It happens.
Yeah.
I, by nature, am in fact not a morning person. If I wanted to, I could ask for Kathy for accommodations to start later in the day if I wanted to. One of the reasons I don't is because I think it actually helps me to get up and moving, even though I don't like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Valid.
Obviously, there are days where I oversleep. It's not the end of the world. But being up early-ish helps me get started with the rest of the day.
Right.
But also, I want to be considerate of the rest of my department. Because if I'm not working from 9 to 11, someone else has to answer those calls, answer those emails, start the process for the rest of the department. And because of the company that we work for, we have some pretty extreme flexibility. Someone might have an early morning doctor's appointment. Someone's kid might need to be taken to the ER. Like, not all of us are at our desk at 9. And that's okay. And if I felt that I needed to ask Kathy for that, I don't think she would deny me, especially if I did a formal accommodation. I just don't feel like that process is worth it for me because I'm getting everything done 95% of the time. I'm
Yeah.
at my
Totally.
9.
Yeah, I was gonna say it
were-
leads back to that, like that you being able to have it, the capability to like work around your shortfalls, knowing that is really helpful.
Definitely. Or, like, for example, if I had a doctor's appointment at 9, all I would have to do is say, Kathy, I have a doctor's appointment today. I'm going to be in at 11. And she'll go, okay, cool. And then I'll work from 11 to 8 or something
Mhm.
instead of, 11 to 7 instead of 9 to 5 or whatever. So, and a lot of the other members in my department are not full-time. I think it's Kathy and I that they are the only full-timers. Unless Samantha. Don't quote. I don't know. The point being, though, like, I could move around the schedule if I felt it was necessary. I think the only thing that would force me to do that is if I wanted a break in the middle of the day, maybe. The biggest reason I haven't done that really is because all the meetings tend to be in that like 10 to 2 period.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I just want to go outside.
Yep. Totally heard. Hell yeah.
So that, I think if I were going to change my schedule, that would be the way to do it. But because of the nature of my work and the structure that we have as a cohesive team in our department, we cover for each other all the time. So someone else would have to cover for that time period. And while they're absolutely willing to do so, I don't want to put that burden on someone else if I don't need to.
Yeah.
Totally.
If that changes and I feel that, like, for my mental health or my physical health or whatever that's needed, I'm definitely going to ask for that.
Mhm.
But until it reaches that point, I don't need to rock the boat for that.
Hell yeah.
No, makes total sense.
I definitely did rock the boat. Just to take the opposite standpoint there. Where
It's all good.
I don't think I even really meant to, but like
Oh,
I just remember like back when, because like I also used to work 9 to 5 at AA&E, And when I went part time, I was like everything was shifting around for me. But thankfully, I had folks on my team that really advocated for like setting the hours I had available up so that it was good for me. Where I'm like a noon to 8 or 9 girly nowadays, which is great for me.
Yeah.
Because I love two things: sleeping in and staying up late. And so if you just shift that work day to be further on in the day, I'm awesome. And
yeah.
So
like when I was in the office before COVID, oh god, drop my phone again. Hello. I'm sitting in my comfy chair, which is not conducive to talking on Ted's telephone because my battery's low, but the light on my computer was not good. So anyway,
you're great.
When I was working in the office, I actually left my house at 6:30 to be at work at 7:30 because I lived in Brighton, so I took the bus to be at work at 7:30 so that I could be done at 3:30 and not work until 5. So that like I could actually be home at a normal time and therefore make dinner and do all the things. Because if I had worked 9 to 5, I'd still have to leave pretty close to 7:30.
And then you're dealing with the traffic on the way home and everything else.
Gross.
Well, I took the bus at the time, so it wasn't too much traffic for me, but it just takes forever.
Yeah.
So like an hour, what's supposed to be an hour in the morning turns into an hour and a half, 2 hours if you're on rush hour time. Same for in the evening, and I was just like, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So I asked my boss at the time, Brian. I was like, actually, this was even before Brian. I'd rather be there 7:30 to 3:30 instead. That way, I'm done earlier. I can get home. I can just relax and do whatever, and that worked fine. And then COVID hit, and I just switched to 9 o'clock so I can sleep. Because why do I need to be up that early?
That makes sense.
I do not.
I think that also plays in a bit though, because we're all like, being having ADHD or autism, like the delayed sleep cycles. I've gotten used to going to bed earlier at this point, and I don't know if I could actually manage the later schedules. But I mean, for me, unfortunately, 6 a.m. is kind of a bit of a sleep in compared to what I was working before.
That made my brain
for
flip
me,
over,
I take
glad
sleep
that you get to
medication
sleep in
actually.
nowadays.
So, yeah.
4 a.m. work shifts. I didn't hate the work. I really didn't. It was just the fact that
4 o'clock.
Hey, here's the thing. 4 o'clock in the morning, nobody's coming into the deli to pester me. I am literally just doing dishes and putting things out, which is why I didn't have a problem with it at the time.
Yeah.
Now, if the job paid a little bit more, I probably would have still been working as a deli clerk or as a produce clerk because I did not mind that work at all.
Yeah.
But for at least for the insurance industry, we're very much so the 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock people. But there are my job has quite a few accommodations that are available because it's a family related company, and that's
nice.
That's the nice thing about working. Again, going back to that conversation we had about finding places that will accommodate you, that work best for you, that work for you. I work for a company that's very family oriented, so it's not uncommon for us to have some part-time folks who are out at 3 o'clock to go pick up their kids, or who come in on a delayed start because they have to drop off a child, or they've got something else going on. And there's some people who it's known, hey, you might need to pester Bob a few times because he works really well, but he has ADHD. Just remember, set up a follow-up and CC this person because that's the go-to to help remind him. And that's a thing that we have in our office, which I think is wonderful. And it's all about finding a job that allows that and doesn't berate you for forgetting things sometimes, or isn't looking at you trying to be picture perfect, and recognizes that some of the different neurotypes do struggle a little bit with certain aspects of the job.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely think that flexibility is key. I know that there are medical providers that I meet with pretty regularly for my diabetic stuff that if I worked somewhere else, I'd have to take an entire day off to go see.
Yeah.
But because I work for AA&E, I can take a half hour in the middle of the day and do a virtual appointment, or I can take half a day off and just do a morning appointment or something. For me, that flexibility is key, and it's one of the things that's keeping me here. Because if I went to somewhere else, there are providers that I meet with on a weekly basis that would then have to change their entire schedule to accommodate me. And I am not okay with putting that burden onto someone else, as pretty clear by why I won't change my work schedule. It's just my schedule affects a lot of other people, and therefore everything is pretty homeostasis in terms of schedules. I can take a doctor's appointment, I can meet with a provider, or I can meet with whoever, and it not affect the rest of my department at work. And I don't have to have someone else shift their entire schedule to accommodate now that I have to take a doctor's appointment. So much. I'm good.
Oh yeah. Taylor, you mentioned something about how having a job environment where you're not getting like berated constantly is really helpful. I was lucky enough to be a part of a research study with Dr. Emily Rothman from Boston University, where we figured out that it is folks respond much more positively to what we called a positivity model in the study, where folks were encouraged based on things they were already strong at to build skills around, as opposed to just identifying things that folks were bad at and telling them to improve it. Which I'm sure that saying that out loud, everybody's like, well, yeah, duh, that makes sense. But like,
but like jobs don't always think that way. Like it's not uncommon to have it to where like, you know, the call center job, it was very common for us to have our metrics like posted for everybody to see. And it's never good to see like a person who has that line of red and you can know that they're like it's not a positive model at all to think about, because it's all of their shortcomings being seen by the entire team, you know?
Yep.
Like companies don't think that way.
Or like if an employer is saying, hey, you did this wrong, but not telling you the right way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, God.
Okay, cool. How do you want me to do it? But if you don't tell me how to do it right, I'm not going to get any better.
Right. My least favorite thing is when it comes across like, hey, like, you know, we're just looking for a bit more of, more professionalism on your part. And it's like, what?
Okay,
like,
but what does that mean?
Tell me what part of me is unprofessional. Like,
I need to know a little bit more. Like the vagueness is never helpful for those of us who are.
Because like they try to be nice about it, but it's like you're just making it hard to understand. Like I would rather.
I need you to be more blunt. Please tell me what I'm doing wrong.
I need you to be blunt. Like I'd rather get my feelings hurt a little bit right now so that I'm not stressing about it later. Please.
Yeah, exactly. A thing that I always have to tell my like boss is that it's like, if you're gonna schedule me in a meeting, please tell me what the meeting is about, because if you do not tell me what that meeting is about, I'm going to panic. My anxiety gets bad. It's not a good thing. Please tell me what it is. And finding a company that's willing to do that.
Oh yeah. When Kathy first started, so I had been working at A&E for a few years before my current boss started. And when she first started, the first question that she asked each of us in the department was, what can I do to support you?
Oh, that's nice.
And I'm like, already, you're my favorite. The two things I told her were, if you need me to do something, you need to tell me, because I'm not a mind. I'm not going to know. No. And actually, I told her three things. You need to tell me if you need me to do something. Please don't look over my shoulder while I'm working. I don't work well with a micromanager. I will do what you tell me to. I don't need you to check up. And the third thing was, if you are giving me feedback, I love that, but it needs to be straightforward and it needs to be constructive. Tell me what I did wrong and tell me how to fix it.
Yeah.
That's right.
I feel like a lot of people who are neurodivergent feel that way. It's like obviously not everybody. I'm sure there's some that like aren't in that boat, but like at least for me and a lot of people that I know, the more clear, like it's, you've got to make the implicit explicit. You've got to tell me verbatim what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Taylor, perchance did you was that verbiage ready to go in your head? Or did your lovely spouse?
It's my spouse. You know how it is.
Yeah, they're in the chat right now. Shout out to Jay. Hell yeah. Coworker extraordinaire, good friend, and spouse to one of our guests.
Very, very. There's so much that I've learned about like being neurodivergent from them. They're wonderful. I could tell. I give me reasons to talk about my wife. Anyway,
Absolutely. As much as I would love this to turn into the
J Power Hour,
the J Power Hour, we are actually at the end of our time for today, and we have reached the end of our questions anyway. So I just wanted to say one more time that if you have enjoyed your time here listening to us, that AA&E is an organization that helps to provide services to autistic folks and the professionals that support them. If you would like to utilize any of those for yourself or your family members, click the link in the description to learn more. And once again, just a big, wonderful thank you to Stephanie and Taylor for taking time to talk about this today. I really enjoyed this conversation too. I also just really enjoyed talking to both of you, so that that certainly helps. Thank you. Thanks for doing all this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Of course.
Beautiful. Well, friends, thank you for being here. I am going to go ahead and stop this stream, so we'll see you